Yay. Okay. So at this point, Tom, I would like to introduce our ambassadors. These are students that have been in MCDB for a while, and they'd like to share with some of their infinite wisdom. The first person that will go first will be Gracie, then Brooke, then Abby, then Sydney Santos, and we'll go from there.
All right, awesome. Hi, everyone. My name is Gracie. I'm a fourth year, can't believe it, already in the MCDB major and love it. Fun fact about myself is whenever it starts to snow, I'm a huge snowboarder. So, I spend my winters studying and then snowboarding on the weekend. So it's pretty fun. And then one funny thing I wanted to share about my freshman year in regards to campus was that it took me way too long to figure out the difference between Chip and Ralphie, and I still get them confused. So it's difficult.
Hi, I'm Brooke. I'm a third year MCDB and biochem double major. One funny thing from freshman year is I slipped and fell on my butt in the UMC little airway by the fountains and in front of everyone. But I mean, everyone was really supportive and helped me get up, so that was nice. And then also I'm a part of CU B Club, so if you're looking to get into any clubs on campus, I really recommend that one.
Hi, I'm Abby. I'm a senior in MCDB. Fun fact about me, I'm going on my 13th year playing softball, and I'm actually part of the club team here. So if you want to join that, we're always looking. Funny story, I never actually took like a campus tour here. So for the first year I was here, I just didn't know where anything was.
Hi, my name's Sydney, also fourth year MCDB student here. I'm also a history minor, so if you guys are interested in any of that, I have some fun stuff to share. I don't really know if I have a funny story. I guess just I've also slipped on my butt at the UMC before, so I know how that feels. Welcome to CU. I'm excited to see you guys and know that you're interested.
Hi everyone, my name is Santos. I'm a fourth year in MCDB. My pronouns are he, him, and his. And so far I've been involved at East Campus in a research lab under Leslie Limeone. And if you guys want to talk about any summer internships, conferences to present research, or even finding research labs, I'm the guy, and everyone else here is also. And a funny thing that happened to me freshman year was I sat in the wrong chemistry class for a week. So instead of going to intro to chemistry, I was actually going to organic chemistry, OChem, and that was just awful. I was like, oh boy, okay, we're gonna start out like this, all right. But yeah, I'm glad to be here.
Well, those are great stories, and thank you all. I'd like to start off with a question, and the panel will go ahead and start answering these. So what was your transition to college like?
I'll go first. So mine was like not exactly a clean break. I actually did go to a different college before I came here. So it was a little rough at first, but definitely since transferring here, it's been a lot smoother. I like this school a lot, and I think that like this school provides a lot of resources to first-time students, so it's a lot easier to like get to know what you're actually supposed to be doing.
So for me, I came from a small high school, and coming to CU Boulder, it was a dramatic change because I went from a class of around 40 students to 30,000 students walking all around me. And what really helped out was like just kind of letting time go by, and eventually I started, finding friends to make, study groups and kind of finding my own niche here at CU.
Personally, for me, the academic transition from high school to college was something that was pretty new. Did not like the sciences in high school. I only took one biology class and figured it would be completely okay to jump into the MCDB world, and so it was definitely kind of a rough transition. but definitely what helped me was like finding friends to study with, and also speaking with teachers, like not being afraid to ask questions and being like, how would you suggest studying for this? Or like, do you have any study tips? And being able to kind of work on developing how I study best.
Kind of piggybacking off of what Gracie just said, I was an AP honors student in high school. You know, I had a pretty good GPA, and so I was just kind of expecting to do really well in college. And you know, it's a totally kind of different system. I didn't have to study a lot in high school, and in college I had to kind of rework how I would sit down and take notes and things like that. And definitely going to advisors and professors and not being afraid to ask for help is ultimately like what helped me to continue in the MCDB major, because it is super tough, but also really rewarding at the end.
Kind of going off what Sydney said, I think the professors at first can seem really intimidating, but just getting to talk to them, and if they're doing research, talking to them about their research. I think what really helped me is just building connections with my professors, because I had really good connections with my teachers in high school, and so just carrying that through college was really helpful, and just keeping me motivated and keeping me kind of attentive in class.
Great, all great responses. Very good. Well, what was the one thing that didn't work out so well and that you failed in, and what did you learn?
For me, it was chemistry. I don't know, I was never really good at chemistry in high school, and when I got here, I don't know why I expected to automatically gain more knowledge from high school to sophomore year, but what I did is I went into my professor, I went into office hours a lot, and you know, I highly suggest getting a tutor. It definitely helped me with chemistry, but you know, you're gonna have a lot of late nights doing homework and, you know, feeling a little down, but as long as you keep pushing and finding and using those resources that we have, you'll get through it.
Yeah, I would second that. My first OChem class was actually the first class I almost failed. I pretty much failed the first exam, and that was a huge shock for me. So I actually ended up getting a tutor, and I actually did really well in that class. So basically just learning to ask for help was a big barrier for me. So I think getting comfortable with doing that will help you a lot.
Outside of just you know, finding those academic resources, you also need resources for your own like emotional well-being, your mental health. Because I remember failing my first exam in the first semester of my first MCDB class, and that really shook me, because I was just like, you know, I did so well in classes in high school. How can I fail? But after realizing that, you know, it's a learning experience, because now you're gonna force yourself to change how you study and how you're gonna kind of treat classwork in terms of like how you feel about them, because usually you definitely need to find people that you can like, you know, rant to, talk about classes. You just need that emotional support, and that's what really helped me go far in MCDB, is having that support from my peers.
Personally, something that I found myself struggling in was trying to get into a research lab. You know, it's a lot of like just emailing shot in the dark. A lot of the professors are pretty intimidating. And, you know, unfortunately, you will get shot down by a few of the professors. You know, either they won't respond or they will respond and they'll let you know that they're not interested. So that is something that, you know, you definitely have to kind of like learn and take everything as a learning experience, whether that's improving your CV, improving your emails, doing a little bit more research. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say that it was like a failure, because I eventually nailed one, but it was definitely lots of months of trial and error that was honestly kind of stressful. So
Going off what Gracie said, I really struggled finding a research lab, and I finally found one that was supposed to start in April of last semester. And then once like COVID shut down the campus, it was kind of ruined for the semester. So I think like just going into how kind of uncertain researchers around right now too. Just kind of take it with, it'll be hard to find research, but don't get so discouraged either. It's just everyone really struggles with it, and it's okay.
Yeah, that's true. Because after all, you guys have, 4 to 5 years. You have enough time to find research and get into that. So you don't have to pressure yourself to just jump right into research. You just got to find your grounding first, and then start exploring more and more.
When did you guys apply to research labs?
Personally, for me, I started the beginning of my sophomore year, and then I was able, and that was like combing through research papers. That wasn't necessarily like emailing professors. But once I found a few that interest me, I began emailing them around October, November, and then I landed interviews in second semester, and then I got a position in my lab in March, second semester of my sophomore year.
Yeah, I started between my sophomore and junior year. So I landed my positions in June and July. So
What do you do in your research labs?
so I actually work in 2 different ones. I actually work in an IFI lab, and I work in I guess it's considered aerospace engineering, mechanical engineering, but they do biomedical engineering. So in one lab, in the IFI lab, I'm currently working on my honors thesis. So I'm developing a lot of skills in that lab to be able to do that, obviously, and to complete a project. And then in the other lab, I'm kind of collaborating with them for my honors thesis, but a lot of it is just like general work study, like cleaning glassware, cleaning cages, whatever.
Back to the previous question with this question. So I started looking for research, I think a month before I got into my freshman year, and I just kept looking throughout freshman year. So it is pretty common for some people to start looking their first year. But I got into my research lab around March of freshman year because my professor for genetics was a postdoc in the lab. And because I had a pretty close connection by going to their office hours, being a good student, she was able to connect me with her lab and got into research really early on. But yeah, my research project is I'm looking at creating my own heart cells using CRISPR and just kind of editing the genes so it starts emulating a certain disease that you can find in athletes where there's like a sudden heart failure. I don't know if you guys seen that in the news where like, oh no, an athlete suffered from a heart attack. So I'm looking into that condition.
So I work under the direction of Dr. Zoe Donaldson, and she is a MCDB and neuroscience professor. And I just recently began working on my honors thesis, and we use the model organism prairie voles as well as meadow voles. And we use them because they form monogamous bonds similar to our relationship. So they mate for life, they make the cutest little baby voles by parental care. And so I'm specifically looking at the neuronal changes after pair bond loss. So we kind of make them go through a breakup, unfortunately. And we look at the acute and chronic effects, specifically clusters of cells in specific parts of the brains at those specific time points to see if it actually does change and when does it kind of go back to this quote unquote baseline, or like when you start to see new people.
I just want to throw out there, I'm not in a research lab right now. I'm a senior. I thought I wanted to do research coming in my freshman year, and then took a lab and kind of thought maybe this wasn't for me. So, you know, there are other things that you can do with an MCDB major that doesn't necessarily lead you to research. I'm thinking epidemiology, public health. So, you know, you have different options as well.
We have a few questions popping up from the chat. It looks like Santos kind of touched on the first question. Is it uncommon to start looking for research freshman year? And then the second question was, where would you recommend starting to look for research opportunities?
So I sent down a link in the group chat. That's pretty much all the research labs for MCDB. But also just keep in mind, you don't have to do research within your major. You can always try out other majors, especially in IFI and eBio. Like for example, for me, before I got into my lab at Leslie Linewans in MCDB, I actually got into a aerospace lab through this event called the Europe Symposium, and that's where you know, representatives of every department at the arts and science meets, in the entire school, including engineering. And they have representatives like sitting down at tables, and they pretty much just talk about all the research kind of available for undergraduates to join. So I'm guessing they're going to try to do a virtual thing, and you should look out for that this fall. So yeah, look up Europe Symposium, and they should have some opportunities there.
Okay, great. Can you discuss how advising has helped you explore academically and personally during college, and what are some of the tips to make the most of advising? This is a way to put you on the spot, guys.
I can start. So Shane is my advisor, and we talk all the time. But one of the biggest things that that really kind of was a very big pivotal moment in my major, which I know is a little bit different, but was when I was talking with Shane, and I was kind of interested in doing a thesis, but I was hesitant. I didn't really have a great GPA, not really making, you know, I was in a lab, but I was more an undergrad, so I did dishes, you know, I wasn't fully established myself yet. And she was so encouraging and really just gave me the confidence to ask my PI if I could do a thesis. And I asked, and I got a thesis, and now I am a year later still writing the thesis. But I think that was like, you know, definitely establishing a really good connection with your departmental specific advisor, and really using them as a resource of a sense of encouragement and confidence, because it can be kind of scary with whatever, you know, whether it's a huge career change you're looking at, oh, you know, I want to get a PhD now, you know, or whatever you decide to do. They're such a wonderful resource if you establish such a good connection. So it's something really important.
I agree with that. I definitely, this happened like last fall semester, but I was building my schedule and I really didn't know what I was doing, especially with my biochem double major. I was just really worried that I was falling behind with that. And I kind of just walked into my advisor really flustered, and I was like, I don't know what to do. And she just walked me through it, and we walked through planning the rest of my college career, which was really nice. And so like making my schedule for the future semesters has been really easy and really clear cut, because she kind of just walked me through all the options I could take and was like, hey, you don't need to take this class, because I was signed up for some random class that my friends were also signed up for. So I think just really laying it out clear cut for me, which was really helpful. And I've like kept in touch with her every semester to kind of just keep in check that I'm hitting all my requirements that I need to do, which has been really helpful.
For me, my freshman and sophomore year, I was kind of struggling to find my passion. You know, why am I sitting through all these chemistry classes that I'm not doing too hot in, you know? I thought I wanted to do research, then I thought I wanted to do med school. You know, I was bouncing all these different ideas off of my advisor, and he was really, you know, very calm and collected, and just kind of walked me through all of the steps and all of the prereqs that, you know, I would need if I decided to do, you know, med school versus this and this and this. And so my advice to you is don't feel, you know, shy with your advisor. They know a lot of information and they're there for you. So literally spill your heart out to them, and they'll help you figure out a way that you can achieve what you want to do.
So my advisor is a huge help and kind of staying with MCDB, because I was kind of like in the area of switching majors. And it was really helpful to just kind of lay out all your worries and everything that's like going into your consideration, because it's a very valuable conversation to have to kind of justify, why you're in that major, and it fits you. So it's definitely just having a person to talk to, not necessarily to, concrete plan, but just to discuss what your future can be.
Yeah, I think they're a really good resource. One of the first things, because Sue's actually my advisor, she did for me was like literally the first appointment I ever went to. She was like, all right, so these are all the classes you are probably required to take. Here's just play it out in like 3 different years, and then I'll give you like basically like a skeleton, and you can kind of add things in each semester as you want to. Because I'm a very big like planning person, so I will straight plan all my classes for the rest of my undergrad, and having her as a resource to be like, oh, you should take this class instead of this one because it seems like you'd be more interested in that, is just, it's really helpful.
I think we got a question about how am I going to find out who my major departmental advisor is. And so what we try to do is, if you happen to have met with a departmental biology advisor during the summer in your first year as planning out your first fall schedule, we try to keep it so that you would then get reassigned to that departmental advisor. But we're very flexible. So, you can try us before whatever you want to do. So if you come to our departmental drop-ins and we kind of rotate around, see who you resonate with. We are not at all, we're a very big support group of each other. So if somebody likes Shane over me, hey, it's Shane. If somebody likes Adam, we go for Adam. We're here to support you guys in your endeavors, and we want to make it as comfortable as possible. So that's kind of how we work. So you will get reassigned to the departmental advisor, usually at the end of your freshman year into your sophomore year. And we do try to reach out during that transition, and we'll look at schedules. So if something's really kind of like, ooh, what's going on there, we'll try to attempt to reach out to the student to maybe highlight if maybe that was a mistake or whether that was intentional. We're not invasive, but we just want to highlight if there might be any potential issues. But that's the answer to that question. Have you explored anything else at CU other than your academics?
Yeah, so I'm a work study student, so I've kind of bounced around since my freshman year. I started off as a community educator for the Natural History Museum on campus, and then I was a student event coordinator at the, it's CSI. I don't know why I can't think of the long name for it, but that does a lot of the clubs on campus, so you should definitely check them out if you're interested in any of that. And now I'm a lab assistant or lab manager for Discovery Lab, so if you guys are taking that this semester, you'll probably see me pop in and out.
Yeah, CSI is the Center of Student Inclusion, is that what it is? Yeah, so they run most of the clubs, and
yeah.
What I started exploring was going outside of biology. I started doing astronomy with the CU Astronomy Club, and I also became the treasurer for that. And then I went into developing a new club called the Denver Nuggets Appreciation Club. It's just pretty much this club where we just kind of hang out and just watch basketball together, and we like buy tickets for everyone to go down to the Pepsi Center. I mean, I guess this year we're not going to be able to do that, but there's lots of clubs. It doesn't have to be in your major again. And there's just a lot to do here at CU.
Personally, outside of academics, I've bounced around at reception jobs, but right now I work at the Case building. So if you guys ever study in Case, you'll see me at the second floor asking you to wear a mask. So it's a lot of fun. But yes, on the topic of clubs, I know that it's still an academic club, but MCDB Mentors is such a fantastic club. Me and Abby are both very avid members. I should have worn my MCDB shirt. It's the best. But if you guys are interested in joining that, we do lots of talks. I'm sure we're going to get something over Zoom this semester, but as a little plug, it's great.
Yeah, I'm actually I'm in there. Like I said, I do softball too. I've kind of like I try to have a balance of like academic clubs. So I'm in like American Medical Student Association, just kind of pertaining to different interests. But I also tried to like uh, balance it out with joining a sport again. It's just, even though it's like it's a couple times a week, sometimes it's annoying to have to go up to campus at 9 o'clock at night, but it's so fun to just be able to like have that community of like a group of girls that were just kind of messing around at practice in the middle of like having to study for 4 exams. So
Yeah, as I mentioned before, I'm in B Club, and then also I'm a part of a community service fraternity, Alpha Phi Omega. So that was really fun, but my big recommendation for like exploring all these clubs is check out the Be Involved Fair. I know it's online this semester, but it's really cool just to kind of see what campus has to offer. Because I didn't know about B Club or the community service organization before like one of my friends brought me to the meeting. So I think just really look around and kind of spend time seeing if anything catches your interest, because there's a lot of interesting things you can do here.
Had to unmute myself. This big thing comes up and it says, you are muted. And I'm like, oh, I guess nobody heard that. Yeah, so what is the best thing that you think you've done so far at CU?
So going back to when I worked for the Natural History Museum on campus, we did a huge community outreach education program down in Mesa Verde, the national park here in Colorado. And it was like a whole 2.5, 3 week program. But it was really, really interesting because we worked with a range of audiences and really got CU's name out there. And I loved it. I love working with people. I've thought about being a teacher before, so it kind of, gave me a sense of another opportunity that I could have in the future. So yeah, go CU.
Something that I really enjoyed that I did last year was I was a learning assistant for MCDB 1150, which is the introductory MCDB course you guys will take either this upcoming semester or either spring. And it was the most amazing experience being able, I had around 90 students, I had 3 recitations. I loved lesson planning. My drawings of membrane proteins were terrible, but my students somehow figured it out, but it was just so wonderful being able to work with freshmen and be able to see your guys' passion as it grows, and as you guys figure out all of these cool things about cells and body and how it all works and comes together. It's really cool to see people's interests grow and them develop like their own sense of, I enjoy this about MCDB specifically and how it differs from a range of people. And it's really kind of helped me develop a sense of like what I want to do after I graduate, which is definitely go out and help more students with molecular biology, because it's just a really, really neat thing to be able to teach.
Really cool. Probably the best thing that happened to me was I was just walking by the Biology Advising Center, and they have like a flyer board of all these cool opportunities. And then there was one opportunity for a summer internship that I applied for, and I just found myself spending 2 summers over at the Harvard Medical School doing research and then attending conferences to go. And it's just amazing because it's also on the website for Biology Advising Center, all these cool opportunities for summer internships, conferences, lots of other help. You should definitely just check in every so often and see if there's like any opportunities that you can go for. But definitely elevated my experience in research, because with those summer internships, it opens so much more doors. And then you could just start even this summer or after freshman year.
So this is going to be a hard one, because I know it would have been a hard one for me. What is your favorite, or what was your favorite MCDB class?
It's so hard. It really just depends on what you're really interested in. For me, it was infectious disease, and Sarah Sawyer is the professor for that class, and she was so passionate, and that was what really got me interested and is now what I want to do, infectious disease epidemiology. So take it, definitely. It's very, COVID plays a good part into it, so you should check it out.
For me, my favorite MCDB class was Developmental Biology, which is a capstone course, one of the classes you guys have the opportunity to take. The professor is Dr. Jennifer Martin. She is just fantastic. One thing that really spiked my interest, it was really cool to learn that pretty much 3 chemicals pretty much control any development, limbs, everything. Just 3. So if you lose one, that's really not super good, but it leads into lots of different kinds of issues that, you know, people can face later on in their lifetime. So really interesting, highly recommend taking it. It's a very challenging course, very fast paced, but super rewarding. So highly recommend.
I think mine was my capstone too. I took molecular neurobiology. Yeah, Sydney was in it, and it was just a really interesting class. I've never really taken a neuroscience class, so I didn't have a lot of experience, but it really got me excited about neuroscience, and I'm actually doing the neuroscience certificate because of it. So that was really cool, and it just kind of opened my eyes to a new study that I hadn't really focused on beforehand.
I think my favorite class was probably, I think it's called editing genomes. I just think of it as like the Xenopus lab that I took. It's basically surrounded like CRISPR and all of like how that works, and you actually get to like design your own basically way to CRISPR your own genes in these like little frog eggs. It's super fun, super hands-on. It's not as like gratingly difficult as like a lot of your lectures are. I just found it was a really fun class.
My favorite course is a lab course that MCDB provides because there's, I think, 3 right now. There's drug discovery, phage, and then there's also, we don't have the Python no more, do we? Or, well, yeah, there's, my favorite lab course was the phage lab, where we kind of have to discover our own phage and just kind of characterize it and pretty much give it, you know, a name. Basically, you discover it and upload it to a database. And what's kind of cool is, so the class itself isn't dependent on like how far you get. It's just really at your own pace, and because it's purely based on discovery rather than just completing every single experiment. And it's your first time experience in learning skills in wet lab, using pipettes, using lots of other tools. And it's a great introduction to start off kind of going into research labs at CU.
We have a lot of first-year students that start in MCDB, and I think one of the questions that a lot of students come up with, and I saw one just recently in the chat here, is how did you decide that you were going to pursue the MCDB major?
Something that I first thought of when I read this question was, as I mentioned previously, I was not in the sciences in high school. I had absolutely no interest. I took 1 biology course and that was it. So I had no idea what I was getting myself into. But I remember sitting down with my friends freshman year, we were all studying for the final for MCDB 1150. And they were like, you're like oddly excited about any topic in this class. Like they were like surprised, and I was like on top of studying. I was like drawing whiteboards. Like I was really, really excited. And they're like, oh, you're really kind of into it, you know? And so I was like, yeah, I guess I am. And then, you know, I found like little bits and pieces that really interest me. So I like fell in love with just the concept of DNA and everything that can happen. And I was like, I have to keep going with this. Like, you know, it's really, really interesting.
I feel like I kind of lucked out into it because when I was transferring here, I just sort of looked up CU biology, and eBio and MCDB came up, and I was like, I had never really liked ecology, so I guess I'll do the other one. And so I took intro to MCDB, and honestly, that solidified it for me because that was like the first class in a long time that I was like, wow, that was incredibly interesting, and it was super fun, even though it was very hard. So, yeah.
I've always liked biology, but kind of determining, you know, what 3 majors to choose at CU. I'm not a big anatomy person, and then again, what Abby just said, I've never really been into the evolutionary aspect of it, but yeah.
For me, what solidified MCB for me was getting into a research lab, because at that point, it became more of improving myself as a researcher rather than just classes. Because it's kind of like a duality where things I'm learning in classes, I can use that information in my own experiments. And also, while doing my research, I'm learning the small details that I'm gonna, also learn in the classes, and then I'll be like almost like an expert, because then I'd be like, oh yeah, I've done this, and it just works so well hand in hand, and I think it just improves the experience in MCDB and learning.
Yeah, I took a couple biology classes in high school, and I just really got interested in kind of disease research and like cancer research. And I was just looking at the different majors that I could do. I was deciding between this and engineering. My mom just she was an engineer, and she was like, I don't think you'll like it. I think you'll like the more arts and sciences side, where you kind of get a more holistic view rather than just like straight math and computer science. So that's kind of what pushed me onto this MCDB route.
I think luckily this year, the very first class is being taught by Nancy Guile, who is a beloved faculty member at MCDB, and you'll see her lots, and I can see all the nodding heads. But she is going to be the first time ever teaching the introduction to the molecular biology major. So I think that will highlight kind of what this major is all about and how it differs from other majors, so that you have a good idea of where you want to go. Just because you're an MCB 1150 doesn't mean you can't change. And so you're not going backwards, but you're learning, and you're learning what is going to be really, that's just going to be so intense for you. So that's good. So I guess tell us about, have any of you done a study abroad program? No?
I mean, I did a spring abroad program, where I would take the classes the first like half of the semester. Then during spring break, we would go over to Mexico, actually. This is for more the ethnic studies, Chicanos class. However, because of the pandemic, they canceled the trip, I think, the day before we were supposed to leave. So that was unfortunate, yeah.
It is easy to do study abroad for all of the first year students in this major. So even though not all of these guys really haven't done it, it is possible, definitely. And there's some more research oriented ones. What are some tips that you might share for some remote online learning? Because this is just very unprecedented, and at least you guys went through some of it in the spring.
I think what's the hardest thing about the transition is that when it was in person, you had a place and time to learn and study. Now it's going to be probably going to be from your rooms, your dorms. And what I think it was really important for me to kind of stay in that mindset is to kind of dedicate a certain spot in a room or a desk at a time, and just stick to it. Just do studying, just do classes for that. Because if you start, doing it from the bed, the feeling of sleepiness and studying is just gonna be a great mess. You wanna kind of split off spaces just for the time and space, so you can focus on what's needed at the time.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point, Santos. I'd also say like staying organized and making sure, you have a planner or a calendar where you're making all those deadlines, and having a set amount of time, like, okay, from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. I'm studying, so you're not getting real confused about what's going on around you.
I'd say
similar. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I'd say another thing, because I know some professors are doing the thing where it's like, oh, because it's like online exam proctoring is kind of difficult, they're saying, okay, it's open note, go for it. Still study, study like you would for a normal exam, because even though it is open note, it's, if you don't know it, you're still not going to do as well as you would if you actually studied for it.
Similar to what Sydney was saying, definitely taking, like, writing notes down. I noticed a lot of my friends struggled when they just typed their notes, or they, just listened to the professor and like kept the lecture like saved on their computer. And that wasn't very helpful come like finals time. Like we all took biochem last semester, like a big group of us, and it was, a huge final. And so it was really helpful to still have all my notes written down, all of my annotations, everything was pretty organized in all one spot instead of trying to dig around on a computer. And a lot of the professors, specifically if you guys take Jenkin 1, I know Dr. Hendrickson is really big on this, but she loves telling you to take in-person notes. Like, she hammers down the idea there's scientific evidence of that connection from the hand to the pen to the paper. So I would definitely recommend doing that.
Another thing is, yeah, definitely try to space it out. I know class schedule's probably already set, but yeah, try to give yourself some time, because being on Zoom for like 6 to 8 hours a day back to back is just one of the most horrible experiences. So yeah, try to give yourself a break and go outside, because it's just a lot of screen time.
Yeah, I would also say schedule in like some time to actually do nothing or like do something fun. Like, I actually started, because I took a lot of summer classes, I scheduled in like an hour of like roller skating time, just so I could like force myself outside to do something else.
Okay, does anybody out there have any questions? They're all very quiet. Is everybody set up in terms of their living situations this fall? Anybody out there want to say something about their situation?
Are any of the freshmen living in the hotels? My sister's an RA, and so I'm kind of curious to see from the freshman end how that worked. No? Cool. Okay.
Huh? Okay. All right. Well, everybody was on top of it and probably are in a dorm somewhere. Where's your sister, Ella? Where is she?
The Hilton Garden Inns.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That'll be an interesting experience for sure.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, she's a little stressed out right now, but I'm sure it'll get better as the semester goes along. So.
Okay. Well, I'll wait for just a little bit, see if we have any other questions. Otherwise, I just want to invite you that definitely stay connected with your first year advisor. Feel free to connect with the departmental advisors. We're kind of all as a team, so we're here to help you and want to do as much for you as we possibly can. If things come up, we're here as a resource. Don't hold back. Come to us as soon as anything happens. The earlier, the more options we might have. So you'd be surprised what sort of things that we might be able to come up with. So, and especially this time of, who knows what's going to happen. You're in the best field ever, right? You're going to be able to understand what the heck's going on. Sydney mentioned about one of her favorite classes, the infectious disease. I don't know if you know this or not, but she had to actually cancel the class this fall. And the reason she's doing that is she's developing the spit test for COVID. So there you have it, a department that is on the cutting edge of what is going on in science. So that's what's exciting about molecular biology. And, obviously I'm disclosing that I was an MCDB nerd too. So I love this stuff. It's just so fascinating. And, even though I've been away from it, I had the knowledge that I can still understand it, and I can read research articles and still understand all of it. And it's a great skill and a great thing to have for the rest of your life. So let's see. what is the best way to connect to our departmental advisors? Come to our, we have drop-in advising Monday through Friday, 1 to 2:45. You'll sign into a Google Sheet and then we will get to you and we can talk with you. You know, that's how you can do it. We're here for you for sure.
This fall, we're fully remote on Zoom. So if you click onto your advisor's picture on Buff Portal Advising, you will see the drop-in hours available. So we have Monday through Friday, 1 to 2:45. As Sue said, signing in a sheet and we'll email you a link. So definitely check your CU Gmail. Yeah, hopefully we'll see you sometime during the fall.
Well, I want to personally thank all of our ambassadors here. What a great, wonderful group of experiences that you are all able to share. I think that's very helpful for a lot of students. And I thank you a lot for coming and sharing all of that with us. And to the rest of you, welcome to CU. And again, we're all here for you. If you have any questions, you have the resources of the advisors. And I think there were a few links in the chat. So when you sign out, you won't be able to access those links. So if you want to copy paste them real quick, you can do that as well. I think there was some great things in there. Just one other thing that I like to leave with students is that when I meet with students, I get to learn as much as they might get to learn from me. So I'm always constantly asking questions about various new classes and finding out various things. So, you know, I get to learn as well. So I want to thank you guys for that. Well, with that, I think I'm not seeing anything else. I wish you all the best. Have a great rest of your weekend, a great start to your first day on Monday. And thank you again, everybody. Bye.